Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel, drum rolls. So I really abandoned this channel for a very long time, which is not a good thing. So here is me starting it again. So if you know that you want me to keep doing this, you have to encourage your girl, subscribe, hit the like button, share this video with as many people as you can. Anyways, happy Father's Day. Today's actually Father's Day, and I went for a long walk earlier in the day. I usually do like a 1 hour power walk in the mornings as part of my exercise routine. And while I was on that power walk, I wasn't even really thinking about the fact that it was Mother's Day. I was listening to a motivational video, and then I started to think about my why. So in many parts, my why is really part wanting to give my family the best of everything that I never had as a kid growing up, and also trying to make my parents proud, even though they are both dead. It's so funny. I started thinking about my dad and how much of a daddy's girl that I really am. So that brought me to my book, The Stars Are Ageless. If you haven't bought this book, go get it. It's on Amazon and it's really, really amazing. I wrote this book when I was turning 40. So it says the stars are ageless, finding my light in life, in love, and on set. Okay, so it has several chapters, and I think I'm going to do a YouTube video for every chapter of this book so that I can go more in depth, right? However, for today, I'm talking about daddy issues. Okay, so a lot of you relate to that. A lot of women relate to daddy issues. So I'm going to read an excerpt from this chapter, the beginning of the chapter, and then we can talk. Okay, so my father had 9 children, 2 from my mom, 3 from the second woman he married, 3 from the third woman he married, and 1 from a woman outside. A way match. Anyways, all the other children apart from Onome and Onome is my mom's child, so my sister, grew up with him. And while I could understand on an intellectual level that none of this arrangement was their fault, I still resented them that they had him and I did not. And that's the truth. Growing up, I sort of resented the other kids because I felt like, especially the kids from the second woman, because those were the kids that were young when I was young. The other kids, I was already a grown woman. I didn't resent them anymore. And I had a great relationship with my dad at that point, right? I still resented them that they had him and I did not. They had grown up with daddy and I would have given anything to be in their shoes. I grew up wanting my father's love. My mom provided for us and did everything she could to make us comfortable, but for me, something was always missing. I was envious of young girls who had their dads with them. I always wondered what it was like to have a dad who came home every evening, who brought toys and gifts for his little girl, who protected her and made sure no one hurt her. My dad's visits were random and short, but they were some of the happiest days of my life. I did not care what had happened between him and my mom, or that he was not contributing regularly to our upkeep. I just cared that he came to see his little girl, When the time for him came, when the time for him to leave came, I would cling to him with all I had in me, willing him to stay with us and never leave. He came to see me once or twice in school and I showed him to everyone who cared. I was so proud, just in case they thought I did not have a dad. Here he was, in flesh and blood, my own dad, right? So the truth is, growing up as a child, I always used to wish that my parents would come back together. I always used to pray that somehow or the other, my parents would come back together and, I would just have like a proper family, like really have my mom and my dad in the same space, making decisions about us, taking care of us. But, that never happened. And a lot of women can relate to what I'm talking about when I talk about daddy issues, especially women that didn't grow up or girls that didn't grow up with their father. It's almost like you're looking for your father in every man that you meet. It's crazy, right? It's almost like you want to be taken care of on another level, not just what a partner or a spouse would naturally do for you, but a bit deeper than that. You're constantly searching for that daddy's love that you didn't quite have growing up as a child. So my dad was, he wasn't a deadbeat dad. However, he wasn't there. He really wasn't there. He would come once in a while to see us. His visits were sporadic. It wasn't like anything fixed, like, oh, every weekend he came. We didn't even live in the same town. So it wasn't like every weekend he came to see us or anything like that. Like, he would just show up out of the blue sometimes. And for me, that was like, oh my gosh, the happiest day. Christmas came early. My dad is here. Everybody come. My dad is here. You know, my sister, on the other hand, didn't have a great relationship with my dad when we were growing up. I feel like maybe what happened between my mom and my dad, subconsciously she kind of held on to it. I was a baby, so I don't even know what happened between them because I was really too little. I probably was less than 1 when they separated. But my sister was probably turning 3, and then, you know, she was young, but some kids hang on to things and they remember them. Because I know that my mom said to us once that when she would be crying after she and my dad had separated, and, you know, she just had these 2 little children to take care of herself, and it gets really overwhelming, and, you know, she used to just feel really bad, and she would sit down and cry sometimes. My sister would come to her and say, "Mommy, is it daddy? Don't worry, here, don't worry," you know. So I feel like she kind of understood a little bit what went on, and she resented my father for it. So my dad would come see us, and my sister would literally just disappear. Like, she did not want to have anything to do with him. She would go away. Like, she sensed when he was coming. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like, if my dad came to school to see us, you wouldn't find my sister. Without even seeing him, somehow she just senses that he's around, and she just disappears, you know. And I on the other hand, like, maybe I was the traitor. But the funny thing is, my mom was amazing. Like, she never made us feel like we had to pick or choose which parent to love and which one not to love. She would always say things like, what happened between your dad and I is between your dad and I. He's your father. You must love him. You must respect him. You must do. She would always say those things to my sister, because me, I didn't send anybody who I was. I didn't send anybody's father. This is my daddy. I love him. I just want him to be there more. That's just what I wanted, you know. So, but as I grew older and started to go into, I mean, this is a very difficult story to tell. As I grew older, I was now in secondary school and all of that. I remember once, you know, my mom was a teacher, so it's not like we had a lot of money. I remember once we needed money. I needed money. Was it when I got admission into university? I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that I was a teenager now, right? I traveled from my town where we lived to where my dad lived. My dad lived in Benin. We lived in outskirts of Warri. Delta Steel Company was in the outskirts. My mom was a teacher with the company, so we had accommodation with the company, so we lived there. So we went. So I traveled myself. Like, I got on a bus, traveled all the way to Benin, and I went to my dad's place. It's a really hard story to tell, and I remember my dad, I think he was about to go out with his wife at the time, his second wife at the time. They were about to go out. I remember seeing the kids, and I was just thinking to myself, I never had this. I never did. I wanted it with everything in my heart. You know, and I said to my dad that I needed some money and all that. He said he didn't have any money, you know. And I just felt, you guys are about to go out. You don't have any money? Like, dude, I traveled all the way to see you, you know. Anyways, he didn't give me any money. So I didn't even have enough transport fare. So when I got to Benin, I was going to go to my mom's cousin's house. They lived in Benin. But from my dad's house to my mom's cousin's house was quite a distance. So I needed to get on a bus to go there. So I didn't have enough money with me. And I just started walking. I just started walking and walking and walking. And I remember just thinking about so many things as a child, you know, thinking about so many things, feeling so horrible. And I just continued walking. It was such a distance. There was no way I was going to be able, there was just no way I was going to walk all the way because it was really far. Needed like 2 or 3 buses to get there. I walked and walked and walked and walked until I was so exhausted. And then I stood at a bus stop. I didn't have money to get on the bus, or I didn't have enough money. So I knew there was a number of buses, but I didn't have enough money for all the buses. So I stood at the bus stop and I had to approach a total stranger. I had to approach a total stranger to say, um, I'm going to so and so place. I don't have enough money to get there. Can you help me? So this stranger put me on the bus and paid for me to get to the next bus stop. I had enough money to get from that bus stop to, my mom's cousin's place, but I didn't have enough money for the first bus. So paid for the first bus for me, and that was how I got to my mom's cousin's house. And I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. I cried so much. It's funny that didn't even make me hate my dad. You would think that that would make me, bear this grudge and just hate him and everything. I still made excuses for him. That's how much I really wanted this man's love. I still made excuses for him. But then as I got into uni, I would go see him. Still, we're not in the same town. I would go see him. He would give me what he has and all of that. And we just became closer and closer and closer until, I got married and all of that. And we were like really close. And I remember every time I'm traveling, my dad would say to me, oh, you don't even tell me when you're traveling. I'm like, dude, I'm a grown woman. I am a grown woman. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but for a very long time, you didn't even know where I was or what I was doing with my life. Now that I'm a woman, you every time I'm traveling, you're like, oh, I have to read in the papers that you are in this country, or I have to, see it on social media that you're in this country. How is it that you don't tell me? I'm like, I'm answerable to my husband, not really you, but that's another story for another day. But my dad became like my biggest cheerleader. Everyone in Asaba, my dad worked with the government in Asaba at the time. Everyone there knew that, oh, this is his daughter, because he would tell everybody. Every time I had a movie coming out, we would help me organize a premiere in Asaba. My very first movie, we shot part of it in Asaba. My dad took care of all the Asaba and all the feeding and everything for my cast, my crew. I didn't even have to worry about that. His wife at the time, his third wife, would organize the cooking and everything. My dad would bring out drinks. My dad is the life of the party. Those kind of people that when you're around them, you can't be sad. They just bring out drinks, everybody's drinking and gisting and just happy. That's the kind of person that he was. So we got really, really close. I remember the last time I saw my dad was Okafor's Law. So he helped to organize like a screening for Okafor's Law in Asaba. So I came on the day. Blossom and I came on the day, and my dad took us to eat and just took us around, showing us to people, oh, that's my daughter, her movie where it's showing tomorrow, make sure you come, this, that. It was really a lot of fun and excitement. I didn't know that he was going to pass on, I think a month after that, but we had a great time. And then lo and behold, one day I was actually doing ambassadorial duties, for a brand I was working with at the time. So they had an event and I was there. And then I got on my way there, I got a phone call. And my uncle said my dad had been in an accident and they're taking him to the hospital and all of that. And so I started trying to call my dad. He wasn't picking up. And after a while, then a nurse picked up and gave my dad the phone. And I was like, oh, hello. And he was like, hello. He called one of his kids' name. He thought that was the person I was calling. I was like, no, this is Omoni. He was like, Omoni. I was like, Daddy, how are you? He was like, Omoni, thank God. Thank God. I was like, oh, Daddy, thank God. And you're going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. I got off the phone. I was so happy I got to speak to him. And then I got to the event. I kept trying to check up every 30 minutes, every hour. Nobody knew anything was going on. I was smiling for the cameras, doing everything that I needed to do. But every 30 minutes, I would go outside and make a call. I called my sister. She came to the event to meet me. And, we talked, we spoke to the nurses. We kept, communicating. They said they were going to take him to do a brain scan and all of those things. Anyways, I got home that day and I ate. It was my first meal of the day. This was like evening now. I ate and I went upstairs. As soon as I got upstairs, I got a call from the nurse. And she just goes, we lost him. I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? Yeah, he didn't make it. I'm like, I spoke to him. I don't get it. I spoke to him. Like, what do you mean? Like, how did he not make it? Oh, my phone just fell off my hands. I fell on the floor. my second in command at the time told me, picked up the phone and started, trying to talk to the nurse and ask questions. I just couldn't. It was like my world literally just collapsed. Like I felt like someone pulled a rug from under my feet and I just crashed, and it was just awful. I didn't know what to do. I called my husband, I called my sister's husband because I didn't even know how to tell her. My sister and my dad were now really, really close at this point. They were like super, super close, I didn't know how to tell her. So I called her husband and told him, asked where she was, and she hadn't even gotten home from, because we both were at the event together. So I said, you have to tell her when she gets home. And it was just, I didn't know how to organize myself, Anyways, next day I had to travel to my hometown because my dad was on his way from Asaba to his home in the village when he was literally like 5 minutes from his house in the village when the accident happened, So they put him in a mortuary not very far from the hospital they took him to. Is not very far from our hometown. So I had to go there, and I spoke with the head nurse. The head nurse called me into her office, and she was trying to do the whole, I don't know if it's bedside manners, whatever it is, like, oh, we lost him with that. I'm like, it's a little too late for this thing you're doing, because guess what? A nurse actually called me on the phone to tell me that my dad passed over the phone. Like, who does that, right? So really, this thing you're trying to do is late. Like, I've already experienced everything that I need to experience. So you trying to, talk nice to me and all of that is neither here nor there. I'm just here to pick up his belongings and settle the bills, and all of that, and start making arrangements, So it was crazy. Of course, we went through the whole madness of African barriers, Nigeria in particular. Someone dies, you're grieving, and they just make it worse. They just make it worse. So he's all sorts of village people, one thing or the other, the church group did this one, did that. It was crazy. But, we went through that, and it took me a while to start to heal, but I had to be intentional about healing because it really crushed me and it was affecting every area of my life. So I had to be intentional about getting healing because I felt like something had been taken away from me. There was a lot that still needed to be done. There was a lot that still needed to be said. There were some conversations that we hadn't had. There were some conversations, there were some conversations that we needed to have for the childhood trauma to completely leave. We didn't have those conversations. So in a way, I feel like I still carry some of that trauma. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying. So we didn't have those conversations, and I just felt like, why did he have to go so soon? Like my dad wasn't even old. He was young. My dad was the life of the party. Like, my dad's nickname is Mobility. Do you understand? For them to call someone Mobility, you should know how the person is or was, So there was still so much that needed to be said. There was so much memories we needed to create, because I needed to create those memories. I needed to store them up in my memory bank. I needed to be my daddy's little girl for a long time, but it was taken away from me, So yeah, that's my story. That's my story about daddy issues. There's so much more in the book, if you don't have it, you can go get it. I'm gonna put the Amazon link in the description. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, anyways, so love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Click the link to subscribe, and make sure that you hit the bell so that you get notified every time that I post a video. I'm going to be doing more YouTube stuff, lifestyle, all sorts of things. We're going to be learning a lot together. I love you guys so much. Bye.